Hey guys, and welcome back to Monka, where stupid shit ensues, but today I finished watching a show about a week ago, and so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. But the show I finished watching was, maybe you can tell by the shirt, was Sailor Moon. Now in particular, this is going to be talking about the original 46 episode run of Sailor Moon. This won't be going into any series afterwards, like Sailor Moon R or whatever follows R. I'm actually not sure, I haven't watched that far yet. Currently still watching through R, enjoying it, but I watched Sailor Moon and it's been so long, and I honestly can't remember when I watched Sailor Moon, but it was so many moons ago, that I can't remember a single thing about it. So pretty much watching it was like a brand new experience because I hardly remembered anything. I don't know how much I watched of it previously, but I had seen Sailor Moon before. I don't know if I'd started from the beginning or if I just watched random episodes, but Sailor Moon originally aired in spring 1992. The original series aired for 46 episodes. My overall opinions and the long and short of it is Sailor Moon is a really good show. It does have its flaws, yes, and it does have, issues that I would say, but overall it's a really good show and it's really enjoyable to watch. And even with its flaws that it does have, it's a really good show. Like, honest to God, you should watch it, even if it's 46 episodes long, which is a pretty good run for one season, and considering there's like so much more that I gotta watch to. I think there's like 200 episodes. It's ridiculous, but I'll get through them anyways. But there are a lot of things that I like about Sailor Moon. There are a lot of things that are kind of about Sailor Moon, but overall, Sailor Moon is a really strong anime either way, and it really is a part of the sum of its parts. There's a lot of things that work together that make the anime really good. But starting with animation, the animation is pretty dated, but of course it was made in 1992, so it kind of makes sense, but it still looks good nonetheless, even for an anime from 1992. Like I said, it's dated by about it's a 30-year-old anime now, which is crazy to think, but it is. So the animation isn't crazy good, but it's still nonetheless a really good looking anime. The only problem I have with the animation is in terms of the fact that they really like to reuse animations a lot, and they do it a lot throughout the 46 episodes. Like every time Usagi, the main character, transforms into Sailor Moon, they use the same animation for transformation every time, and stuff like their attacks, like the Sailor Guardian attacks, they use the same animation every time. They like to reuse animations quite a bit in this anime, and that's really the only thing I can complain about. But they just do it a lot, that to the point where it becomes noticeable and becomes kind of annoying. Otherwise, the animation is fine, and even though it is dated, it still looks fine to me. I'm not bothered by it, to be honest. Yes, I've seen better looking anime, but you gotta put it in the frame of perspective that it's from 92. It's a 30-year-old anime now. It's gonna be dated, but it looks fine for what it is, and it didn't really distract me from actually enjoying the anime. Now, the music and sound design are two things to touch on, and voice acting as well, but the music is a very big strong point of Sailor Moon. The soundtrack is something else, I won't lie. It is fucking good. It has very heavy jazz inspirations and has a really good instrumental sort of soundtrack that just sounds really good and just has a really original and soulful sound to it. So many anime shows that I watch, I just describe the soundtrack as it does its job, it's there and it does what it needs to do. But this soundtrack is just so good with the instrumentals and the orchestral and the jazzy sounds, but also other influences mixed it through. It just has so much soul that it just feels compared to animes I've watched recently, it just feels so awesome. The soundtrack just has such a soul to it. Honestly, if you watch this anime and Usagi hits you with that moon prism power makeup, you'll get hyped up to hear that transformation theme, then honestly I don't even know, man, because it is just so good. And honestly, that transformation theme plays in my head all the time. But the soundtrack is fucking great for this anime. It just has so much soul and I fucking love it. And all the instrumental inflections and everything are just so great for this soundtrack. And honestly, I love this soundtrack. I hope Sailor Moon R has been going pretty strong with this soundtrack. I hope it continues to. Sound design wasn't really something that I noticed too much, so I'm going to suppose it was pretty good. I can't remember any of it being too stand out, so I'm just going to assume it did its job. Now, the voice acting, I watched this anime with the English English dubs. Your mileage may vary if you watch it with the Japanese dubs or whatever. Honestly, the voice acting is pretty alright. You know, it's alright. It's good. It's not bad. It's pretty good. I won't lie. It's not like amazing or anything, but it's pretty good, to be honest. Usagi has a good voice actor. All the Sailor Guardians have a good voice actor. Tuxedo Mask and all the villains have good voice actors. I will say that Usagi can get pretty grating at points, but honestly, that's just due to her character being such a kind of annoying. We'll get to that when we talk to story and characters, but overall for the sound, music is killer in this anime. Honestly, a good reason to watch it, and the voice acting is pretty good as well. So in terms of the sound design, it's pretty well done. Now in terms of the story and characters, this is kind of where it gets kind of weird, because honestly the story isn't all that great, but it's not bad at all. Pretty much the story is that Usagi is just a regular high school girl, and she does regular high school things, and then all of a sudden she's thrown into a conflict where she gains the ability to transform into Sailor Moon and fight the bad guys, or hunting after something called the Silver Crystal, which they intend to use to take over the world. It's a superhero anime, which is cool, and honestly it's probably one of the first to do it in terms of anime, since it's so early on in like anime. That probably was one of the first to do it, and it's also one of the first to be like the Magic Girl animes. Probably created the genre. Citation needed, I'm not sure if that's factual, but it's nothing amazing, but it is a decent story. Mainly what carries it is the characters throughout, but near the end the story starts to get a bit better. It's not like constantly fighting enemies scene to scene and like the typical like high school drama type of shit that they do throughout the entire series. It actually has some more like deep conflict, but for the most part it's just kind of a superhero anime with like this kind of like regular girl Usagi doing regular girl shit and acting like a regular girl, and then she has to dress up and transform to Sailor Moon and fight enemies. It's an enjoyable anime, to be honest. The story, like I said, is nothing amazing, but it's still pretty decent enough to where it can be enjoyable. The only thing I can really complain about the story is that it's already a pretty basic story, but it still has plot convenience throughout. Like somehow Usagi looks the same as she does when she's transformed into Sailor Moon, but no one can figure out that she's Sailor Moon even though she looks exactly the same. It's plot convenience that like I really don't care, but it's something worth noting, I guess. Now the characters are pretty much what are going to hold up the story, because the characters are really strong. Usagi's a pretty goofball character that makes the anime really enjoyable with all the stupid shit she says. She kind of caps out at her best about 20 episodes in on her one-liners, but she still hits them pretty well after that. Honestly though, the best one she hits is like, "You crossed the line and this isn't a crosswalk," and that shit made me die, and that was kind of the height of like her one-liners. She never really hits a better one after that, but she's still a great character just because she's so stupid and funny that it's just, she's fun. The other Sailor Guardians are enjoyable as well. They come in as they do, and they all have their personalities as well. The only thing I can really complain about is the fact that the characters, Usagi in particular, feel like they never really evolve as characters. I don't really ever feel like Usagi ever comes up as her own as a character. She always feels like she kind of stays static. That isn't a horrific thing, but it just feels like there's no character evolution throughout the anime, which is fine, I guess, because it really doesn't bother me too bad. But it is something worth noting. She really never feels like she comes into her own. She kind of just feels like she stays like regular girl Usagi who transforms into Sailor Moon. Maybe she does and I just missed it, but it never really felt like she did progress as a character. The other characters kind of feel the same way, the Sailor Guardians in particular, but like I said, maybe that's just something I missed and they slowly progressed and I just kind of went over my head. Besides that, the other characters like Mamori and Tuxedo Mask are enjoyable. Tuxedo Mask is such a weird goofball. It's really enjoyable. The character is enjoyable. Really, his character is pretty serious. His character comes off more goofball because of his interactions with Sailor Moon. Just kind of make it funny and goofballish. Besides that, the side characters are what they are. They're side characters. And the villains are pretty goofy as well, but they're really enjoyable. And honestly, all the characters are really enjoyable in their own way. In lieu of the story not being like amazing, the characters really carry it. But overall, story and characters, story's alright. characters are what really carry it though. But overall, Sailor Moon is actually a pretty great anime, all things considered. Yeah, it has its flaws, and I can recognize its flaws, but it's an enjoyable anime to watch. It is 46 episodes long. Some of that is filler, but most of the time it's like Usagi and company fighting villains for 46 episodes. It keeps the action moving pretty much throughout the entire anime, and it's really enjoyable. So honestly, I'd recommend watching Sailor Moon. I'm not sure if Sailor Moon R will be worth watching or the other 150 episodes, but I'll get to that when I get to that, of course. I'll talk about Sailor Moon R when I'm done watching it. That's another 43 episodes to get through, and I'll get through them eventually, but I'd absolutely recommend watching it. There's a reason why it's a classic, because it's a good anime. It's a great anime, I'd say. It's really enjoyable to watch, and I'd absolutely recommend watching it. At the very least, listen to the soundtrack, because the soundtrack is killer. It's fucking fun to listen to, and it's just like, it's very soulful and it's inspired. It just has such a strong soul that I'd absolutely recommend listening to it. But thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you. Stay chill.